We've got Dawn in Boston. Thanks for waiting.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you, Dawn?
All right, thanks for taking my call. I enjoyed your show over the years.
Thanks.
The issue I wanted to bring up is that theism, isn't a problem itself any more than using the analogy of homosexuality. Theism is no more a problem than homosexuality, and it's a way to use that analogy for both theists and atheists to think about.
So I'm not. It's not that I don't understand. It's that I don't agree. Theism is the acceptance of the proposition that a God exists. If in fact a God doesn't exist, that's a problem. Homosexuality is about who you're sexually attracted to, and that's just true.
Yeah, but it could be my life works better when I'm attracted to the same sex, and it could be my life works better when I believe in a God.
Okay, but I'm concerned about whether or not it's true, not whether or not your life works better with it. Because if it's not true that there is a God, and your life is better if you believe in a God, then whatever's happening to make your life better has nothing to do with that God. And if we can discover what it is that's making your life better, then that means we can remove that God belief and deal with the thing that's actually making your life better.
Well, that sounds like theism conversion therapy.
No, I'm not rounding up theists and telling them that they are wrong and bad and that they need to give this up. I'm trying to find out whether or not it is true that a God exists. And the people who keep telling me it's true absolutely, utterly, consistently fail to demonstrate any good reason to believe it. As partial evidence for this is right off the bat, you're not talking about whether or not it's true. You're talking about whether or not it makes you feel good or makes your life better.
Yeah, and I think that's important for both theists and atheists to understand about one another, that they're doing something that makes their life work better for them.
My position on a God has nothing to do with whether or not it makes my life better.
I think it does for people.
No, wait a minute. There's an awful lot of people out there that their life would actually be a little easier if they just believed in a God. Because being an atheist, in some parts of the world, it'll get you killed. So, I mean, it's not about what works better or makes your life better. It's about whether you're convinced that a claim that a God exists is true or not.
Well, I'm talking about, I can't remember the scientist's name, but there's a couple of famous ones that are theists.
What difference does that make?
Yeah.
Well, that they obviously, you're trying to point out there's a problem in believing something that, whether it's true or not. And yeah. I think they would say, well, it's good. I feel better, just like a gay person feels better being with the same sex.
No. It's more like how an alcoholic feels better when they're drunk.
What's wrong with being drunk?
Well, for one thing, your brain doesn't work correctly. You're likely to make bad decisions. And if you are actually addicted to alcohol, you don't actually feel better. You just are convinced that you feel better. In many cases, because you're drinking away the pain.
Let's say you just get a buzz off of the atheism. You're not a problem.
Atheism isn't a thing that I could possibly get a buzz off of. Yeah. I am not convinced. I am not convinced that a God exists. That's it. It is a position about whether or not I am convinced that a claim is true. I don't get any more of a buzz off of not believing in a God than I do about not believing in Bigfoot or Loch Ness monsters.
Well, what about if you could predict people's predisposition for theism or atheism based on some brain analysis, something physical, and so you could say, well, this person is destined and more likely to be gay or straight. You could probably predict that, probably even political, right or left leaning. You could probably eventually predict that. So
how is that relevant to whether or not the claim is true?
Because if someone's brain is structured such that if you could predict that they're going to their life is they're more likely going to be theists, and they seem to be happy that way, just the same way a gay person
I asked
is happy.
how this is relevant to whether or not it's true.
Yeah, I'm making a distinction that it doesn't matter.
Do you
if it's
care?
true on that-
Do you
Yeah.
care
on
whether
that-
or not the claim is true?
on a God claim?
Yes.
I think it's. I would just jump to you can't prove it, yes or no.
Well, okay.
No, that's not the answer to the question.
Wow. So earlier when I said I have difficulty communicating with people who also speak English, the question was, do you care about whether or not the God claim is true?
No, I don't think.
Then we're done.
that
Well, then,
it's-
yeah.
Thanks for wasting my time, because I don't care if your primary concern is whether or not it makes you feel good. That is a position that says, I don't give a damn about reality and truth. I only care about what I think, which means there's no point in having a conversation, because there's absolutely nothing anybody could say that's going to get you over that until you actually start to care about whether or not something's true.
Well, and there's one thing in particular he brought up about if you could predict that someone was predisposed to believe, wouldn't that be good? And that's such a bizarre claim. It's almost absurd, because if people were predisposed to some kind of religious fervor for some reason, then religions wouldn't have to spend so much time and effort indoctrinating people from birth. You would just hit the age of reason and it would click and you'd be there.
You also wouldn't have sincere believers or former pastors
Right.
Who give it up for, but let's say for a second that we could do some kind of brain analysis and determine that Matt is more likely to become a theist than Jen is. What have we learned? Have we learned anything at all about whether or not a God exists? Have we even begun to examine whether or not it's reasonable to believe this? Or have we just learned that some people are more prone to certain types of mistakes in thinking than others?
Which magicians have known for centuries.
There are times when I have to get a volunteer up on stage, and many times I'm happy to have random volunteers. Other times I want to specifically pick somebody. And the goal is to pick somebody who you think is going to be fun and entertaining and cooperative on stage. You don't necessarily pick the asshole dude who was just shouting out, "Oh, I saw what he did." You don't pick that person to come up on stage. Mm-hmm. This is not magic. This is not some advanced brain monitoring thing. This is just human beings being able to look at people and evaluate their actions and their body language and things like that to say, you know what, I think this person's likely to be a better volunteer than this. We can do the same thing. I think what you find, if it turned out you could evaluate it, is that we are all flawed thinkers who have the likelihood of accepting propositions under the right conditions. Like, I don't know, being raised in a family that all believe the same thing and raise you from childhood to believe that. Yeah. But in any case, it doesn't get us to whether or not the proposition's true. And if you don't care whether it's true, then I don't see what we have to spend any time on this show discussing it. Because you might as well be calling me to say, I'm convinced that there are underwear gnomes who break in at night and steal my underwear. And I don't care whether or not it's true. This belief makes me feel good. Well, thanks for that. I mean, there was. I didn't get to see the show, but Tracy and Phil were on, and they had said something critical about logical arguments, about how it was verbal masturbation or something. And I haven't seen it, so I can't fully address it. But I fundamentally disagree with that line of thought, because arguments are how we reason about everything. And the question is, are the premises supported by evidence? Do we have good reason to accept them? If somebody just says, I don't care about the truth, about pathways to a truth, about what methods we should use to tell whether or not something's likely to be true, don't call the show, because I'm not interested. I have no there's this idea that, oh, well, it's true for me. No, it's not. Yeah. Truth is that which comports to reality. Yeah. It may be true that you are convinced of this, but whether or not what you are convinced of is true is the part that I care about. And I don't care. You talk about verbal masturbation, calling in to talk about how I'm convinced of this, and I don't really care if this is true. That's the true verbal masturbation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my complaint with people advancing arguments and saying, "Oh, and then you come back and you say, well, your premises are faulty or whatever, and where's your evidence?"
Yep.
And they're like, "Well, my argument is my evidence."
Yeah.
No, your argument is not your evidence. Your argument is your argument.
Yes.
You need to connect that to the evidence. And
Yeah, if you present an argument and I say, okay, it's invalid in structure, so therefore we throw it out. If you don't understand that, you need to go take a course or read some more on logic about how an invalid argument is utterly useless, because true premises might or might not lead to a true conclusion. So you need a valid structure for your argument. Then the next question is, do you accept the premises? Not are the premises true, but do you accept them? Because if you accept the premises of a valid argument and reject the conclusion, you are definitionally irrational in that scenario. The next question is, I accept the premises, or I reject the premises. Do we have a way of finding out whether or not they're actually true? Do we have a way of finding out whether or not I should accept them? That's where caring about truth comes in.
Yeah.
And that call was not going to get us anywhere near that.